Most bourbon drinkers spend years hunting bottles they can't find. But what if the real opportunity is buying the bottles that are about to disappear completely? Some of the bourbons in this video have already been discontinued. Others are on their final releases, final batches, or final shipments. And once they're gone, they may never come back. So before you buy another allocated bottle, here are 11 bourbons you may want to grab while you still can. Number 11, Early Times Bottled in Bond. Early Times Bottled in Bond has quietly become one of bourbon's greatest value stories. For years, it sat on shelves largely unnoticed. Today, it's one of the first bottles experienced bourbon drinkers recommend when someone asks for quality without spending a fortune. Part of what makes people nervous is that the brand has gone through ownership and production changes over the years. Combined with shifting distribution, that has made availability far less consistent than it used to be. In some states, it's still easy to find. In others, it's becoming surprisingly scarce. What enthusiasts love is the combination of classic bourbon flavor, bottled in bond credibility, and a price that still feels almost too good to be true in today's market. And honestly, that's why it makes this list. Not because it's officially disappearing tomorrow, but because bottles that offer this much value rarely stay easy to find forever. If you've been meaning to grab one, it may be worth doing sooner rather than later. Number 10, Old Ezra 7-Barrel Strength. Old Ezra 7-Barrel Strength is one of those bourbons that quietly built a loyal following without ever becoming a major headline bottle. While many drinkers were chasing allocated releases, Old Ezra was sitting on shelves offering high proof, solid age, and impressive flavor for the money. At barrel strength, it delivers rich notes of caramel, toasted oak, cinnamon spice, and dark brown sugar, creating the kind of bold profile many bourbon enthusiasts look for. For years, it was one of the best values in the barrel proof category. The problem is that bottles like this rarely stay overlooked forever. As more bourbon drinkers discover quality alternatives to the usual allocated names, availability has become less consistent in many markets. And honestly, that's why it makes this list. Old Ezra 7 isn't disappearing as a brand, but it may be disappearing from the days when you could casually find it sitting on the shelf. And bourbon drinkers know how these stories usually end the bottle. Nobody talked about yesterday becomes the bottle everyone is searching for tomorrow. Number 9, Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel. Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel is one of the fastest rising success stories in bourbon. What started as a unique twist on the classic Elijah Craig recipe has become a bottle many enthusiasts actively look for whenever it hits shelves. The secret is the extra toasted barrel finish, which adds layers of vanilla, caramel, sweet oak, and baking spice. The result is a richer, sweeter bourbon that appeals to both newer drinkers and longtime enthusiasts. The problem is that demand has grown much faster than supply. In some areas, it's still relatively easy to find. In others, bottles disappear almost immediately after arriving in stores. And honestly, that's why it makes this list. Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel isn't disappearing as a product, but it may be disappearing from the days when you could walk into a store and expect to see it sitting on the shelf. As more bourbon drinkers discover it, finding a bottle is becoming less predictable every year. Number 8, Baker's 7 Single Barrel. Baker's 7 Single Barrel has always been one of bourbon's most overlooked gems. While bottles like Booker's and Blanton's get most of the attention, Baker's quietly delivers age-proof and single-barrel character without the same level of hype. Because every bottle comes from a single barrel, no two releases are exactly alike. Some lean sweeter, others showcase more oak, nuttiness, or baking spice. That's part of what makes Baker's such a favorite among experienced bourbon drinkers. The challenge is that bottles like this rarely stay hidden forever. As more enthusiasts discover value outside the usual allocated names, Baker's has started attracting more attention than it did just a few years ago. And honestly, that's why it makes this list. Baker's 7 isn't disappearing as a brand, but it may be disappearing from the group of great bourbons that nobody talks about. And bourbon drinkers know how that story usually ends. The hidden gem eventually becomes the bottle everyone is looking for. Number 7, Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Barrel Proof Rye. Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Barrel Proof Rye is one of the biggest surprise success stories in American whiskey. What started as a relatively overlooked release has become a bottle many enthusiasts actively hunt for today. At barrel proof, it delivers huge flavors of caramel, dark fruit, baking spice, toasted oak, and rich rye character. It's bold, complex, and often outperforms bottles that cost much more. The problem is availability. Unlike standard Jack Daniel's releases, this bottle isn't consistently stocked, and demand has grown rapidly as more whiskey drinkers discover how good it is. And honestly, that's why it makes this list. It's not disappearing as a product, but it is disappearing from shelves faster than ever before. The whiskey community has already caught on, and bottles rarely stay available for long. If you see one at a fair price, it may be worth grabbing because bottles that start as hidden gems rarely stay hidden forever. Number 6, Russell's Reserve 13 Year. Russell's Reserve 13 Year is one of the most respected bourbons released in the last decade. From the beginning, enthusiasts recognized it as something special, a well-aged wild turkey bourbon packed with rich caramel, dark fruit, seasoned oak, baking spice, and remarkable depth. The challenge is simple: age can't be manufactured overnight. Every bottle requires barrels that have spent more than a decade maturing, and there's only so much mature inventory available. As demand has grown, finding a bottle has become increasingly difficult. And honestly, that's why it makes this list. Russell's Reserve 13 Year isn't disappearing as a product, but it is disappearing from store shelves. Each release seems harder to find than the last, and many bourbon drinkers already consider it one of the most elusive bottles in modern bourbon. If you ever spot one at a reasonable price, don't assume it'll still be there tomorrow. Number 5, Stag. Stag has become one of the most sought-after bourbons in America. What was once a bottle enthusiasts could occasionally find on shelves has turned into one of the hardest releases to buy at retail. Part of the appeal is simple. Stag consistently delivers huge flavor. High proof, rich caramel, dark fruit, oak, and spice combine to create the kind of bold bourbon experience many enthusiasts are looking for. The challenge is that demand has exploded while supply remains limited. Every new batch attracts enormous attention, and bottles often disappear almost immediately after arriving in stores. And honestly, that's why Stag makes this list. It's not disappearing as a brand, but it is disappearing from the average bourbon drinker's reach. For many people, the days of casually finding a bottle at retail are already over. If you've been waiting for the perfect time to buy a bottle of Stag, you may discover that the perfect time was a few years ago. Number 4, Wild Turkey Master's Keep. Wild Turkey Master's Keep is one of the few bourbon series where every release feels like a special event. Unlike standard shelf bottles, these are limited annual releases that showcase unique aging techniques, blends, or barrel programs that often never return again. What makes Master's Keep so appealing is that each edition tells a different story. Once a particular release sells out, that's usually it. There are no ongoing batches, no regular production schedule, and no guarantee you'll ever see that exact whiskey again. As bourbon continues to grow in popularity, these releases have become increasingly difficult to find, especially at retail price. Many collectors and enthusiasts now buy them as soon as they appear because they know the window of opportunity can be very short. And honestly, that's why Master's Keep belongs this high on the list. It's not the brand that's disappearing, it's the individual releases. Miss one today, and you may never get another chance to own that exact bottle again. That's what makes every new Master's Keep release feel less like a purchase and more like a now or never decision for many bourbon enthusiasts. Number 3, Four Roses Limited Edition. Four Roses Limited Edition has become one of the most respected annual releases in bourbon. Every year, enthusiasts wait to see which recipes and ages will be selected, because no two releases are exactly the same. What makes these bottles so special is their uniqueness. Four Roses has access to multiple mash bills and yeast strains, allowing the distillery to create limited editions that simply can't be replicated once they're gone. Each release becomes a snapshot of a specific moment in time. The challenge is that allocations are extremely small compared to demand. Most bourbon drinkers never even see a bottle on the shelf, and those lucky enough to find one often face long lines, lotteries, or secondary market prices. And honestly, that's why it ranks this high on the list. Four Roses. Limited edition isn't disappearing as a series, but every individual release disappears forever. Once a year's edition sells out, there's no second chance and no future batch that's exactly the same. For many enthusiasts, the biggest regret isn't missing Four Roses limited edition altogether. It's missing a specific release they can never buy again. Number 2, Parker's Heritage Collection. Parker's Heritage Collection isn't just a bourbon release, it's one of the most respected names in American whiskey. Every year, Heaven Hill creates a unique limited edition in honor of legendary master distiller Parker Beam, and each release becomes an instant event among enthusiasts and collectors. What makes Parker's heritage so special is that every edition is different. Some feature extra-aged bourbon, others explore unique barrel finishes, wheat whiskey, rye whiskey, or experimental aging techniques. Once a release sells out, that exact whiskey is gone forever. The challenge is that demand has grown far beyond supply. Most bottles disappear almost immediately, and older releases have become incredibly difficult and expensive to obtain on the secondary market. Number 1. Booker's Batch Releases. At number 1 is a bottle that technically never disappears, and yet every release disappears forever. Booker's is unique because each batch is a one-time release. Once a particular batch sells out, that exact bourbon can never be recreated. The barrels are gone, the blend is gone, and the opportunity is gone with it. What makes Booker's special is its combination of barrel strength proof, rich peanut brittle, caramel, oak, and baking spice flavors. But for many enthusiasts, the real appeal is that every batch tells a different story. Some become legendary, others become nearly impossible to find just a few years later. And honestly, that's why Booker's takes the top spot. While the brand itself isn't going anywhere, every individual batch is quietly disappearing the moment it leaves the distillery. Bourbon enthusiasts often spend years chasing allocated bottles, only to realize the releases they truly missed were the ones they assumed would always be around. With Booker's, every batch is a reminder that in bourbon, today's shelf bottle can easily become tomorrow's regret. If there's a Booker's batch you've been thinking about buying, don't assume you'll get another chance. Because unlike most bourbon releases, once that batch is gone, it's gone forever. And honestly, that's the lesson behind this entire list. The bottles bourbon drinkers regret most aren't always the expensive ones. They're the ones they assumed would always be there. So let me know in the comments, which bourbon on this list would you buy before it's gone? Thanks for watching.